let's go over a live webinar planning checklist that will help you organize your thoughts and organize your resources prior to conducting any kind of live webinar. First and foremost is your webinar topic. Pick your topic and write that in here. Write your headline. Good tips about writing a headline are, number one, keep it short. Keep it to 140 characters max. In fact, that's exactly the number of characters that will fit in a Twitter stream. Make it benefits driven, make it catchy, make it hooky, sell the outcome of whatever it is you're offering. Make it a very, very benefits driven headline. Work with that a little bit if you need to, talk to some other people. That's really, really important. So there's plenty of room here to write a headline. Write a description of your webinar. The description of your webinar, again, is going to be something you're going to be used when you, fill in the information on your webinar platform, just like the webinar headline. So write a description here. Make sure you've got some keywords in there. That'll be nice and SEO friendly. It's something that Google will like. What is the date that this live webinar will happen? What time will you present? Is this something that will happen on a recurring basis? Is this something that you are likely to be repeating? Is it one webinar in a series of webinars, or a webinar that you will produce as an encore presentation in the future? If so, make a note about that. That will be something that you will want to say yes or no to on many of the platforms. Who is the organizer? Again, the organizer is the person who has the ultimate authority relative to permissions and and the administrative back end of the webinar platform. Do you have one presenter or multiple presenters? Who are those people? Make a note about them here. Make sure that you have Make sure that you have contacted the presenters. Make sure you have checked with everybody to see that they are available on that date and that is working for everybody. Do that in advance, of course. Do you have panelists as well? Panelists may be people who you invite to your webinar who will participate in discussions or Q&A, who do not have access to controls, who will not be sharing the mouse, who will not be sharing their desktop or any of their applications. How I select panelists occasionally is I take panelists who are members of my program, people who have paid to participate, for instance, in a training program like No Blogger Left Behind. And these are people who will have special status on a webinar and who will actually have their mics unmuted and be able to ask presenters live questions that they may have about any given topic. Set up your registration. You want to set up your registration page. You also want to set up what's known as a lead bridge. A lot of the webinar platforms have registration pages, but those registration pages collect names and information, and they don't necessarily deposit that data into your autoresponder campaign or your CRM, your contact or your customer relationship manager. You may want to work with a bridge to do that. There is a WordPress plugin that you can use. There's some other technology that you can use to take those new leads from the registration pages into those platforms. And if you're using that, you definitely want to set that up. You may want to create a registration survey to take the pulse of your market prior to the webinar. Find out what people are doing relative to the subject you're presenting, how they may feel about it, and it's always really a great idea to get an idea about what your market is saying, what they want to know, questions that they may have for you. Set up your webinar alerts by email. Set up an alert so that as soon as somebody registers, they receive an email that says you've been enrolled in the webinar. Send them out another alert, 7 days before. Send them out another alert, probably 3 days before, maybe 1 day before, and then about 15 minutes to 30 minutes prior to the event. If your webinar platform lets you work with text messaging, set up your text alerts as well. Send them out a text alert as soon as they register, because they may have to reply back, to accept those kinds of alerts, and then send them another alert just prior to the event, about 15 minutes before. They get that on their cell phone, and you have a very, very high open rate on that type of messaging. You may also want to use some direct-to-voicemail technology if that's available to you. And what that lets you do is record a message in your voice that is delivered directly to the cell phone voicemail of the webinar participant. And that's a very, very powerful way of increasing attendance. In fact, SMS technology and direct-to-voicemail technology are two of the most recent advances in webinar alerts that work very, very well for increasing attendance phenomenally. Live webinars typically have an attendance rate of about 60%. So about 60% of the people who register for a live webinar will actually attend. You could probably bump those numbers up significantly using SMS technology, text messaging, and direct to voicemail. You also want to make sure that you have a presentation or an outline of a presentation so that you can have something in hand. And again, if you haven't done that, that's a great thing on your list. Create handouts if you're going to be offering something after your presentation. Create that now. Sometimes people create a handout, a PDF handout from a PowerPoint presentation. That's a very easy thing to do. Sometimes people will offer a copy of a mind map when they've created a mind map for a presentation. That's another very, very easy thing to do. Some people like to create a simple document, a Word document, with a few words here or there that people can print off prior to the webinar and take notes, for more comprehension about the subject matter. And that's another option you have. If you're going to be offering bonuses, now is a good time to schedule those and create polls and poll questions that you can use online. Probably space those out at about 15-minute intervals. Polls are great. Again, polls are another way that you can take the temperature of an audience live in real time, and that's a great way to engage your audience as well. You may have a question management and engagement strategy. What that means is, consider how you're going to deal with questions that come up during the course of the webinar. Discuss how you're going to handle engagement that may be happening on platforms like Twitter or Facebook while the webinar is live. People may have questions and they may be asking them there. It's a great way of using, partners in a webinar. It's a great way to divide the responsibilities. Have one person be a main presenter and then have other people who are monitoring the chat on the webinar, who are monitoring the social media places and who can respond to those things. So 2 or 3 people on a webinar operating in those capacities is a really neat idea. Think about what you want to do to advertise, to market your webinar. Are you going to use news releases? Are you going to post on Twitter? Are you going to issue invitations? Are you going to work in social media? How are you going to do that? Put together a little plan for yourself. Definitely do a practice session if you have not used webinar technology, or if you haven't used it lately, make sure everything is working. If you've never done one before, do a couple from start to finish before you ever go live with real people. Very, very important. What is your recording plan? Do you have a plan A and a plan B? Platforms may let you record, and they may host those recordings on their servers. They may also give you an option to download the recordings to your hard drive. I think having a plan B and a second plan is always a good idea, because plan A does not always work. And I can tell you that from sad experience, because I have learned that. What kind of evaluation tools are you going to be using? Are you going to be monitoring the engagement of your audience while you are presenting? Do you need to know when people are there for some specific reasons? Are you conducting a webinar, a training webinar, or a meeting webinar where attendance is compulsory, and there is some reason to be monitoring that? Also, you on many of these platforms, you can have access to some tools that will tell you, are your people attentive? Are they watching you? Or are they doing something on another browser? Are they Facebooking? Are they using Twitter? Are they not paying attention to you? You can actually gauge that type of thing with engagement metrics on some of those platforms, and you may want to take a look at that. How are you tracking your attendance? How are you measuring that? And then how are you following up? Are you following up with different messaging for people who attended than you are with people who did not attend? If you have people who arrived late, do they get the same messages as people who got there on time? If you are messaging to people who left early, are they getting the same kind of message to people who have been there for the entire presentation, who have heard your entire spiel? And and how does that work? Take a really, really good look at your follow-up strategies, at your email follow-up, and whatever other kind of follow-up you do, and consider those very, very carefully.